A very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
I'm Kayode Okikiodu.
And I'm Ayo Makine. Good morning and welcome.
Well, yes, indeed. And just picking up on what transpired yesterday in Ondo State. Well, we do know that they're preparing for... You thought that they're preparing for exams. That's what comes to my head. But they're preparing for the elections, the governorship elections there. And you'd have thought that I haven't seen the way it played out in Edo State after all of the hoopla. Eventually, they were able to conduct it, conducted themselves a lot far better than many thought, given the rhetoric that preceded an election. But what we're seeing now in Ondo State, that raises so much concern. Well, the supporters of the APC and the PDP clashed in Owo. Of course, you know how this narrative usually goes. The APC accuses the PDP of stoking the fire. The PDP, on the other hand, accuses the APC of being the ones who championed it. And look at some of those scenarios. As a matter of fact, the reports that some of the supporters from the reports you see, well, I can't show you some of those, were actually shot. Some said they were shot in the belly and in the abdomen and the head. And so these are narratives which you thought, what in the world is going on here? But you know, one of the ways to actually stem this, it's the police authorities have got to stand up. But the question is, how do they stand up if politicians are the ones recruiting these thugs? Because we've seen in some other states, they recruit these thugs, use these thugs for this purpose. If police try to arrest them and interrogate them, the next thing you know, either the police officer in charge is transferred out of location, or they just come down heavily on them somehow. But you know, we can't throw our hands up in the air and allow this to happen. As much as we like to discourage the youth and let them know, listen, your life is not just worth some of these things. How they recruit you to carry out these things. Look, if anything happens to you, they will move on. They always will move on. And that's the way it is. But unfortunately, this is what you see today.
You know, if you were a researcher and you try to, go behind the scenes of Nigeria's politics, the politicking before elections, what you will find will be shocking. I mean, these are people's children.
Yep.
And like you said, if anything happens, the politicians are insulated, as it were. But, I mean, these ones have to go to the hospital, have to bear the pain. I don't know if they're being paid for that, but clearly your life is not worth it.
Some of them 1,000 naira.
Some pittance.
3,000 naira.
You can imagine. So clearly, it just speaks, it says a lot about those individuals. And, we can't overstress the fact that, election is not war. Don't be used as tools. Sometimes wonder if these people actually listen, if they're listening, watching television or listening to radio. Maybe we need to reach out to them in some other ways. And I know there have been campaigns, numerous campaigns, trying to tell people, political supporters, thugs, what have you, that the violence, you're the one that will pay for that violence eventually. But you know what, that aside, you talked about the police. The police is saying they're investigating. We hope this investigation will turn out to bring out culprits and ensure that they are processed and punished appropriately. The police say the investigation might take some time and they will, get who attacked first so they can make an example of that person that attacked first. But, this usual back and forth, that's like the oldest trick in the book. So this party accuses this party and this other party accuses the other party, and it goes on. And at the end of the day, the people are confused. But what we know is that the lines are blurred, really. The truth is, what you find in one party is what you usually find in the other party. So there is no opposing side or defending side. I like to say they are the same. And if we're going to say we need to solve this, we need to bring both of them to the table and say, both of you are responsible for this. I don't buy that back and forth, really. I don't buy it this morning, especially because the election is just next week. It seemed like October the 10th was like months away, but it's just next week. And if we're seeing this kind of build-up, you wonder what will happen on the D-Day.
It also brings to mind what one of the parties already said, which is calling the police out, so to speak. Now, look, we need to get the DPO, we need to ask him questions about this thing, asking the police at the center, the headquarters in Abuja, to query him for what it is. I don't know for how long this violence went on, but definitely it wasn't something that happened just 1 minute. From the pictures, from the images that we have seen, cars were broken, some burnt, people were shot. It was really, really raucous from all of these images that you can see. It definitely went on for quite a bit. So where was the police at that time? That's the natural question anyone would want to ask. The second issue you want to raise at this point is, whenever there is a gathering of people, expectedly, they should have some kind of security cover. What kind of security cover was provided at that time? The third question you want to ask then is, we are not unaware of the security situation we have. You know, with all the security apparatus of state, we have all the security threat assessments from each state of the nation. So we are not unaware of what is likely to happen in any of these states. So were we prepared, or are we prepared to take them on? That's another question you want to ask. And then fourthly, you want to also raise the question, the politicians there, there are some of them that are, that at least we have a profile of all the politicians, all the major players in all of these places. What do we know about them? What are the potential threats that could come from any one of them? And what have we done to mitigate any of the risks to people? That's another thing. If this kind of trend continues unchecked, the likelihood of having the kind of peaceful election that we should have in Ondo State is not likely to happen. We heard a lot of noise before the Edo election, and people were scared to their bones what was going to happen. We all saw the way it went. It was all noise, no such thing as this happened, at least to the best of my knowledge. Now, this is happening in Ondo State pre-election. The fear of what is going to happen during the elections is high with this kind of situation.
Well, we hope that, well, not just hope, because it's not a strategy.
Hope is not a strategy.
Security, we have to do something about some of these things and ensure that things happen. But, you know, we put out a poll yesterday, and the poll continues. We'd like you to take a look at that. We're asking you several questions. Just one, actually. As Nigeria commemorates our 60th, what would you like to see? Because the theme is together, as the government put out. So, in order to get it right, or to strengthen that resolve to be together, or to strengthen our togetherness, whatever it is, I mean, I know that there are different questions and comments, agitations here and there. Now, that is the poll. Go to our Twitter handle and vote. You could also put a comment, by the way, because, we intend to bring those comments to a lot of people on that day. So just go ahead.
Well, so far we've had over 7,000 votes. People dropping their comments and letting us know what they think about the issue. So, I mean, lend your voice, because these things actually matter. They're not just random polls. They're polls that are meant to shape, policies and what have you. So,
and affect you, because it could be a way the authorities may want to see, okay, look, what are people thinking about?
Exactly my point, because, the last time we put out a poll about the opening of schools or not opening of schools, the federal government had decided that it was time to open. But after that, maybe that was just one of those things that government considered and said, no, the people don't want us to do it yet, so let's just hold off. So adding your voice might just be one of those things that government is waiting for, to say, okay, this is what people think, why not let's do it?
So there you go. Don't just sit back or sit on your hands. Do something about that, because you never know how far some of these could go. All right, let's jump right into taking you through some of the dailies, and we'll keep our eye on that poll. Don't worry about that. Let's start with Daily Trust this morning as we take you through some of the dailies that we do have. Wow, look at what Daily Trust leads with. Remember, they have spoken about how, when they do resume, what was going to happen. But look at this. Daily Trust says, reps to reintroduce water resources bill. You heard right. Bill must come through right channel. Government to blame for poor communication, as ascribed to experts. That's what I'm talking about now. So you could just go ahead and take a look at it and see for yourself what this is about, the water resources bill. Look, you remember there's been a lot of hoopla about this, as a matter of fact, before now. And so this, wow, you need to have seen what transpired yesterday on the floor.
There was some hoopla too.
Boy, it shows you the kind of tension that exists about that one. But this now means that if you haven't paid attention to this, you may need to just go and read it and find out for yourself. What are they even, in some words, fighting about? What is this about? Go read it and find out. And so, For those of you who were wondering, after Labour suspended the strike, even though many were, they voted yesterday, by the way, they were angry about how Labour handled all of those. And then there are questions about NERC. Some were saying that they haven't seen that reflect with the tariffs, electricity tariffs. But look at the story they've got here on the front page of Daily Trust. NERC suspends electricity tariff hike for 14 days. This is what's reported. Wherever you are, try and ask questions and check from your whoever helps you get the prepaid, tariffs in place for you. Find out, has it reflected in your locality or your domain? Let us know.
But I have oh wow, there's a lot of us. Please go ahead.
Oh, it's reflected?
No.
Nice.
I just want to ask a question, but please.
Because what I was going to say, when you were asking people to say whether or not it has been reversed, well, maybe some would say yes, it has been reversed, because I didn't raise the issue with in a conversation yesterday when it came up, and the person said that it should be reversed. But even after that announcement, I went to pay, and guess what? I still paid in that increased tariff.
I thought at some point, well, I heard that some disco said they had not gotten the memo, so maybe they have gotten it. But what happens to people that, it's prepaid? So you buy your power ahead of time. So imagine you bought it for the period of a month. So what happens to that 2-week period? Would you get some, I don't know, just...
Because some theirs even exhausted at faster than the normal time. So there are questions about this.
Yeah.
And the 14 days is 14 days. If they haven't gotten the memo and they get the memo 6 days after, does it increase the 14 days? We still should have to...
So they still have to go 14 days, right?
And if after the 14 days, what happens? There's going to be a conversation about the increase before it is then increased again.
Or will they wait for a memo to revert?
Is Labour even monitoring these things to see that they enforce them in the 14 days?
Is the NERC monitoring to the enforcement?
And this is just a tiny percentage of the questions Nigerians have about this. But, a lot. But let's see what the Nigerian Tribune leads with today. Front page, reps withdraw water resources control bill. That's another angle. It's on page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And there's a picture on the front page that shows the Oba of Benin receiving governors and chieftains of the PDP. They went to say thank you, I guess, for the role he played in that election, which was widely acclaimed to have been peaceful. Which is to tell people to be peaceful, go vote peacefully. Oh yeah, absolutely. So that's a big picture on the front page. And you see 30 years after Itakwe Ajaokuta Warri rail line comes alive. We keep having this tag, 50 years after, 30 years after, project abandoned for years, decades. You see Buhari at its inauguration directs rail network to link Apapa, Warri, other ports. There's been a lot of commendation regarding that. More details in the inside pages of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. See this one, P&ID. UK court orders release of $200 million deposit to Nigeria. It's on page 4. Yet another win, maybe. We look forward to more of that, definitely. And Buhari seeks National Assembly approval to refund 148 billion naira for road repairs in Ondo, 4 other states. It's on page 26. Is that instructive that Ondo is there? Well, this had been in the works anyway before now, so lots of questions really. But let's quickly go through the back page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Osimhen in COVID-19 scare. Virus rocks Serie A EPL. And I see a lot of people praying and saying, no, he will be fine. But definitely, he will be fine. And you see Eagles missing Igalo, others raw. It's been quite a tricky one for Igalo in recent days, but let's leave it there for the Nigerian Tribune.
The Daily Times newspaper is also talking about water. Reps withdraw controversial water resources control bill. The story is on page 2. Depends on the angle you want to look at that story from, obviously. Energy.
You know what they say, water has no enemy, right? But
yeah.
Apparently this
but the bill in bill now makes it the enemy.
Okay. Very interesting. All right. Energy. Renewable energy to contribute 30% of electricity supply by 2030.
Say what?
Yeah. And that's actually coming from the Ministry of Science and Technology. We will find out more of that. 2030 is just 10 years away, so.
Just.
Yeah, just 10 years away.
Sound like a politician.
I mean, come on, man. It's just
10 years is like a year or a few months.
10 years away. The 20-year-old will be 30 at that time.
Absolutely.
Revenue. Lawan raises the alarm on looming recession as revenue gap hits $14 billion. Wow, that is interesting. You'll find out the details on page 4. Rail line, after 30 years, Buhari inaugurate Takwe Ajaokuta Warri rail line. Find that story also on page 4. Right above the nameplate, editorial, the right to protests, matters arising, continues on page 3.
Okay, take a look at Vanguard next. Reps in shouting match as Speaker drops water bill. Speaker orders bill withdrawn, says it lacked due process. Disaster averted, Ohanese. But Abiamila must remain firm, Afeni Ferry.
Disaster averted?
That's right, Ohanese. And then you see Middle Belt Forum, Lord Speaker urges House to permanently rest bill. Then Water Resources Bill needless, destined to fail, Pandev. So quite a number of people, groups rising against this.
Yeah, well, I think that the issue for some areas, some sections of that bill, there's some other sections that provide for, proper management of water and probably some innovative ways, but those sections about, control of those, resources and where it has to do with land, I think that's a major issue for a lot of people. So are we throwing it out entirely, or there's going to be some form of amendment?
Well, look, the House might be a victim of their own system. Because remember, the time that we had the Constitution Amendment, where the clause about the state police came up, Nigerians expected that to, to get the thumbs up from the National Assembly, they threw it out. And then people ask questions, say, look, what's going on? Why did you, because we had this need, and they thought, well, we didn't see the provisions. Okay, well, the 8th Senate said, we'll revisit it. And here we are with the 9th Assembly. And the rest, as they say, is history. So now, if they had that template, so people thought, well, we did it before, it might be in their subconscious, we'll do it again. And don't even go too far. In the same 9th Assembly, remember the vaccine bill? It suffered the same fate.
So-called NCDC bill.
Yep, it suffered the same fate. And yes, there were some good provisions in there, but people just stuck with some parts that they thought, no, something suspicious about this. And then, no, we don't want any part of this. They threw it out. So this, perhaps, might have gone the same way.
Well, it really shouldn't come as a surprise to a number of people. But, what is shocking, as far as I'm concerned on this, is why do we have to centralize this at the center when, number one, the federal government doesn't control the land, but you want to control the water under the land, just the same way you control the mineral resources under the land that you do not control. It's, I don't know.
Well,
maybe it's
food for thought.
Maybe it's too pedestrian, but I mean, these are just basics that many people who will be thinking, will be wondering, what is
contradictions?
Yeah, what is going on?
In this kind of scenario, I'm not sure anything can be described as pedestrian, because if people feel hard done by, feel something about togetherness, you need to hear them out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever it is. It's a democracy.
Absolutely.
Look, superior ideas can always have the day.
The Water Resources Bill, for instance, for those who have questioned it, one of the issues you want to get, what's the partnership with the state governments, the different subnationals? What is their role in all of this? Is it all going to happen from the center as usual?
Okay, so you also do have this above the late story. Lopsided recruitment. Southern Middle Belt leaders blast the DSS DG. You may want to find out what has they've done again this time. It's right there. But then it also turned out good, as it were, because of this. PNID, UK court orders return of $200 million to Nigeria. That's a chunk, I tell you. That is a chunk.
Oh, yeah.
$200 million. Anyway, don't say it's just, please. Yes. I thought I was about to hear.
The first thing that came to my mind when Kade mentioned it in the previous newspaper was, wait, how much is that going to contribute to our budget next year?
Okay. All right. I thought that, at least I thought I was going to hear how much is it going to contribute to our lives.
No.
Okay, good. But then take a look at what's on the back page now. Some Vanguard Sports. Wow, what a match it was yesterday. Anyway, if you saw it.
Yeah, you didn't see that coming, did you?
Yeah, no, nobody. How much? 200. How many millions of pounds did Chelsea spend? Oh boy.
And you see,
Poor
Tottenham
Lampard.
was not even meant to be in that match in the first place.
And then, look, that's football for you.
Yeah.
You know, you can spend all the money. Not that it's bad, you know, to have a good team, something that fans can always like, but that's what you got yesterday. But look at this now, Vanguard Sports. Raw expects tough ride to Qatar 2020 World Cup. Well, yeah. Who was it that said? I think it was Insecure said, may your road be rough.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, hopefully, look.
It makes it worth it eventually.
We've got some diamonds in this team. Some of them even, you know, just waiting to go through
polished,
the fire.
yeah.
And then shine for the country. They can happen.
Absolutely. But take a look at the Guardian newspaper this morning. The lead story is quite different. Illicit transfers hit 103 trillion naira in 15 years. Now, illicit, criminal, I mean, those are synonyms. Felonious, illegal, wrongful, unlawful, I could go on and on.
103 trillion naira?
103 trillion naira. I mean, that's a huge chunk.
You know, I saw because I think 4 or thereabout years ago, the president has been talking about these illicit funds. You know, the way they've been moving across borders. How are they able to move around? We have security agencies, even if they are moving them in cash or if it's electronic wire transfer. I mean, one should be able to trace them. I believe we have intelligence, and I believe our intelligence is active. So this shouldn't be illicit.
And you know, to put it in context, the writer says government spends 63.22 trillion budget in the same period where 103 trillion illicit transfers took place. So
Across borders, and that's what makes it more interesting.
So imagine if, I mean, that 103 trillion naira was put into good use. Well, that's another discussion for another day.
We're going to have
really.
to check maybe much later to see how far government has gone in, I think they've been talking about trying to let Europe, the West, repatriate some of these funds that is in their economy, but who knows?
But you look at the conditions and some of and you wonder, this is our money, isn't it?
This one, that the part of it that the president had been talking about concerns acquisition of small arms.
Yeah.
And that's the one that's part of the reason actually why I think the border was shut. Was closed at the time. So if we have not been able to trace these and we're able to identify that illicit funds are moving in 15 years without being able to trace how or where, that's a problem right there.
In fact, there's some explanation to the how. Still another writer says, how corruption in political appointments worsen illicit financial flows. So this is worth looking into, really.
That's like narrowing it down, right?
Yeah. So it's a lot, really, on the front page. You might want to pick up a copy. But you see this one, on a final note, new test kits raise hope for COVID-19 fight.
Nice.
As world marks 1 million coronavirus deaths, that's a grim milestone, I must say. WHO-approved test costs 2,500, gives results in minutes, but you find people having to pay 50,000, 70,000 just to get tested, especially people that want to travel. That's a major issue, and I think it's worth looking into. But let's leave it there for The Guardian this morning.
Quickly, News Direct is interested in the PNID money. PNID, foreign reserves gained $200 million after a court ruling. That's according to CBN. Find that story on page 22. Malami, others express appreciation. The details are right there on the inside pages. Wiki advocates new revenue sharing formula. The story is on page 11. And of course, the Water Resources Control Bill is also there.
Okay, leadership. They have, look at that. FG weeds out 25,000 ghost workers exposed by whistleblowers. Thumbs up, whistleblowers, whoever you are. Policy should include public safety, violation of human rights. Shibajo. Why corruption is fighting back. CSOs. UK court orders release of $200 million deposit to Nigeria in PNID case. And then you have several others here. So that is leadership. And that ends a look at some of the dailies here today. We will be back in a moment as we keep our focus on Nigeria at 60. We plan to get it right. Stay with us.
This constitution can never give us progress. This constitution can never give us peace. This constitution can never give us unity. And unfortunately, most of us in this National Assembly, we don't have the spine to face what we need to give this republic to have peace and progress. What do I mean? This constitution has 68 items. 68 on the exclusive list. This constitution has only 12 on the concurrent list. And those 12 are written so nebulously, so fraudulently, that you know that the intention is to even undermine those concurrent lists. That is why those who want unity and peace in Nigeria must first remember that the name of our republic is not just Nigeria. The formal name of this republic is Federal Republic of Nigeria. Unfortunately, we don't run a federalist system in Nigeria. Otherwise, what is so unique about all those things that are in the exclusive list? We used to have a parliamentary system. And then we wanted unity, we wanted peace, we wanted progress, and we therefore said we are going to go with a presidential system. Honestly, there are many presidential systems in the world that have peace and progress. I can't quarrel with that. But we must put in place the same safeguards that presidential system across the world put in place, so that you can have what it needs to run the society.
Well, that comment generated and still does generate some reaction, even recently, as we will be commemorating our 60th. There have been comments attributed to the vice president, which many are equally responding to, talking about cracks. And as you see, you may have heard, if you caught the opening sequence, the dailies, lots of reactions as well. But the government, the theme, Nigeria at 60 together, what do we need to do to get it right? Could that be one of the factors? We'll find out as we go on to Mr. Tony Nadi, who is a legal practitioner. He's a co-convener, Movement for New Nigeria, and Secretary General, Lower Nigeria Congress. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Sir Billy.
Well, so much different perspectives really about what we need to do to be together, to continue being together and strengthen our resolve to stay together. Yes, we did put out a poll, which we'll come to much later. But in light of this theme that we've got, Nigeria 60 together, what stands out for you in that particular theme if we need to at least all achieve and point to what we can call the Nigerian dream?
Oh, well, I was just listening to the newspaper reports and all kinds of, all the things that have been happening in the last, in course of this week, even just this week alone. And we had the Vice President raise alarm, Yemi Osinbajo, raise alarm that the walls of Nigeria are cracked, and that if nothing is done very urgently too, that the walls will come down, that the union might collapse on account of those cracks. And then we also saw people jump out from one section to condemn him for pointing out that crack. But the matter goes beyond the crack for us. It goes all the way. That crack, I sit here as a statesman, as one involved hands-on for 20 years plus. looking for solutions to these problems that are now, prevalent and manifest everywhere. The cracks are coming from the foundation upon which we're building. The cracks didn't just happen overnight. The cracks came from the wrong foundation upon which we have insisted on building. And if we're discussing 60 years now, looking back at the fact that it was the election of independence that led to Awolowo being sent to prison, and the response to that leading to May 29, 1962, suspension of the constitution of the Western region of the time, leading further to the breakdown of law and order in Western region that became Wild Wild West, which was what the soldiers, Ademoyega, Njogwa and co, came in, young men who were just, looking out for their country. It was that commotion that they tried to come to arrest 6 years into independence. That was what became January 15 of 1966. And then the basic agreement for being in a union got truncated because we became a union because we were going to be a federation. We became a union because we were going to be a federation. The Sadona, we remember in 1953 when the motion for independence was moved, the northern delegation blocked it because they wanted more autonomy. They didn't want to be mixed up with people in such a manner that they would lose their identity, their culture, their control over their own affairs. And so the 8 points of demand that Sadona raised in rejecting that motion for independence in 1953 became the definition of the depth of autonomy which was acceptable to the North at the time to become part of the union that emerged in 1960. And so it was the collapse, it was the abandonment of that arrangement, which we call federalism, that became the reason for all of the other things that have now gone wrong. And I was just looking at the video of Senator Adeyeye's lamentations on the floor of the Senate. It is the constitution we have. I have a copy here too. The constitution that has emerged, the one that is on the table now, is the aggregation of all of the things that went wrong since this time, since the 60s, almost this last 55 years. So that's how we came. That's how we came to these cracks, building on that foundation that collapsed 6 years into our independence and refusing to listen to.
But the thing about that is that,
yes,
in spite of all,
yes,
we've had several constitution drafting committees, different governments, 60s, 70s, 90s,
yes,
and I mean, at least many of them headed by civilians.
yes.
And they said that they had gone round the country.
Yes.
In fact, Justice Nikitobi, when he headed, he said Nigerians opted for 1979 constitution. So many people they give the impression that, look, people had gone round, collated memorandum, and Nigerians opted for that 1979, which there isn't any fundamental difference between 99 and 79 anyway.
Yeah.
So where then lies the problem?
Well, we've been, when you choose to deceive yourself, you begin to reap the kind of outcomes we have now. The problem, which they've been evading, trying to avoid, but they are now face to face with the consequences of that recklessness of refusing to diagnose what the problem is, just deciding to treat, like doctors who do diagnosis before prescription, before treatment. What we've been doing in all this attempt to go do it this way or that way is we've been avoiding the diagnosis, the correct diagnosis. The problem is that constitution making is not the business of government. And what has happened, government is like, I'm sure our people can relate with companies and their memo and articles. The memo and articles of the company is the exclusive responsibility of the owners of the company to submit themselves into the enterprise, into what becomes XYZ Limited. And what happened to Nigeria in 1966 was that the managers, because the government is in the position of hired management, the owners of the enterprise are the ones who could have been countries of their own if not for the Union of Nigeria. Let's get that straight. And the discussions that must be had, the process that will lead to having a constitution that can stand, is a discussion between those shareholders of that enterprise called Nigeria. And who are those shareholders? We back up from behind 1960 to see a Western region that had their constitution as at their own constitution emerged as at 1957. Then Eastern region followed right after. And then it was in 1959 that the Northern region came to where they had their own constitutions. There are like 3 countries negotiating how to form some kind of union, like Germany and Portugal and Spain discussing whether they could form European Union. That was the kind of arrangement that Nigeria, was agreed to be. And from the point in 1966 when the 5 constitutions that defined that union got toppled by the hired management, because government in its 3 arms represent the hired management of the enterprise. The owners of the enterprise are the Yoruba bloc that could be country of 55 million people, the Eastern bloc that could be country of 70 million people. Forget about the divisions that were introduced in 3 days to the declaration of Biafra in 1967. Then Northern region, that could be country of its own. And so it was in refusing to recognize that that Nigeria ceased to be a federation from the point in 1966 that those 5 constitutions that defined the union up to that time, the federation up to that time, got jettisoned, and we had, we began to have, by decree, a centralized, instrument, the unitary instruments that have metamorphosed into 1999 Constitution. Let us remember that it was on the 27th of May in 1967 that the 4 regions which federated, the 4 regions that had autonomy, the 4 regions that had ownership and control over their assets, it was from the point in 1967 that those 4 regions were broken into 12 states, and their assets progressively got taken over by the federal government, that we ceased to be a federation. But we kept pretending, such that by 1975, when Murtala Mohammed took over from Gowon, the first task he gave, of course, the entire commotion of 66 led to war, in which more than 3 million people got lost in one part of the country, in the eastern part of the country, and the Biafra War. And from that point of 1970, when the war ended, instead of going to examine what truncated our federation, we patched it up with all kinds of things. They say NYSC, for instance,
if I could jump in, because
yes.
in 1975,
yes,
General Mohammed at that time to set up a constitution drafting committee.
Yes.
And it was headed by then eminent jurist Chief F.R.A. Williams.
Yes.
So does it mean that all of these issues were lost on them when they came up with the constitution?
They were as they were wrong that time, so are the ones who are discussing what to do about amending constitution in National Assembly wrong today. It is not within the legislative mandate of the National Assembly to make constitution. Constitution making is the exclusive business of those who will submit their lands and their peoples into a union. The National Assembly is only a part of the management team, one arm of the government. And so by 1966, it was that management team that toppled the enterprise and removed the owners from the memo and articles of the enterprise, and now the federal government became the owner of everybody and everything progressively, to the point now where we have 68 items on the exclusive list, to the point now where even the matter of electing who will govern us is only an INEC in Abuja that will have to process everybody that will emerge, to the point now where we can secure ourselves the matter of simple policing, to the point where all of the economic assets belong to the center. We now saw, we've come to where there's a waterway control bill that is now meant to take over all bodies of waters across the land, with some kilometers of land adjoining it, such bodies of water to the left and right. So the center, the federal government that was set up to be a union office for these owners of enterprise, has now toppled the owners and become the owner of the enterprise to the exclusion of those ones. And those owners are shouting and crying. Let us go back to discussing so that we can rebuild the foundation upon which we can, upon which this union can be sustained.
I think it
they
is
are refusing to
important.
listen.
Okay, no,
and we see people now moving progressively towards a self-help.
Just one moment.
Yes.
I think there is a need to define how we can solidify that foundation so we don't go back
Yes.
to where we are trying to get out from.
Yes.
Well, depending on what historical accounts you read,
Yes.
some would also tell you that it was the politicians that after all the rockers that followed the First Republic, it was the politicians themselves that invited the military to come take over because they are not having it easy managing things themselves. So they wanted the military to come over. As a matter of fact, when the military came in to try to manage the unrest at the time, they just said, you know what, just go ahead, manage this thing for a while, we'll back off. And the military wanted to hand over to the people back, and they said no. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that First Republic had the parliamentary system of government, and which, as you said, these regions championing things. And economically, a number of people have said that economically, each of the blocks were doing quite well. The Granite Pyramids in the north, the coal in the east and the cocoa in the west were doing quite well and all of that. But it was the same politicians that couldn't really agree on a number of things, as they are still finding it difficult to agree on a number of things now. So if we're going to get this country right, is it a problem of the system of the constitution, the system of government, the constitution, or the people?
Hold it there. The answer lies in completing what I was saying in response to the last question about how we came about the constitution we're building upon. There are 3 items, and I want everybody to listen carefully. I'm saying this not just as a lawyer. I'm saying this as a lawyer with specialty in jurisprudence. In that field of law, my students are the professors of law and the senior advocates in Nigeria. We are in this building now. There are 3 components: the foundation, the vertical column, and the roofing structure. That's basic. Now, we hear about polity all the time, overheating the polity. We have the polity, that's the definition of the union, as done by, as you will find in the Constitution. That is the foundation. Then it is that foundation that moderates and defines the politics, PDP, APC, and all of what happens in elections and how people get elected. That's the vertical column. The roof is where you're now discussing the policies that come from that politics. In those 3 compartments, you come back to the definition of democracy. Government of the people means the foundation, that the people, in exercise of their sovereignty, decide the ultimate rules, which you call the Constitution. By the people means, having so decided, the politics that happens in the place is governed by that Constitution. And then the policies for the people is where the people begin to get benefits. But Nigeria's democracy, so-called democracy, does not pass any of these 3 legs of test. Back to the question of Chamberlain about 75. What happened in 75 was that Murtala Mohammed came in and basically gathered all of what they got by brigandage from the war to convert into constitutional instrument that will now be permanent. And he commissioned Rotimi Williams, who in turn brought in Ben Wabweze, and they crafted, according to the instruction of Murtala Mohammed and whoever worked with him, they crafted what became the draft that went to the Constituent Assembly in 1977, like building a house from the roof. Instead of getting the constituents to come to discuss the balance of what they could not agree on in Aburi, that was what was required at that point, to get back to being a federation, let everybody recommit. They drafted this and put before the Constituent Assembly, in fairness to the Constituent Assembly of 77, because by 76, Murtala Mohammed was already out of, having been chucked out. The Constituent Assembly rejected most of they didn't accept the 12 the states that have been created. It had become 19 as at the time. The Constituent Assembly did not accept presidential system because it will accumulate power in the manner we have seen, and all kinds of things that eventually made it to that country. It was Obasanjo on the 21st of September in 1978, having received the clean draft of what came from Constituent Assembly that would have taken us back to something better. 17 amendments. We are diagnosing how we got to where we are. If we don't get it, if we don't become honest about it and get to the root of the matter, this house will collapse on us. That's what Osinbajo was saying.
If I could follow up on that, because
Yes.
if that were the case, then there was another one.
Let me
in
just land so that we can know.
Right.
My landing is that on the 21st of September in 1978, Obasanjo went on national broadcast to introduce 17 amendments to the finished work of the Constituent Assembly. So the 1979 Constitution was not a product of the people of Nigeria, as many will want to claim. It was those amendments that removed everything that would have taken us back to resuming our status as a federation. And if you can imagine that the states, we now have 36 unviable units that they say is the federating units. The states, if we had gone back to the regions that will federate, we wouldn't have these 36 states now, nor the 704 local government areas, right, and all of the things that now make the union unworkable, totally unworkable. This is 8 items of exclusive list. How did Land Use Act get into the Constitution? So, how did NYSC, to tell you the kind of things that are continuing to crack our walls? The NYSC was ostensibly brought in to make young people mix up so that they can understand their countries better, their country better. But that's the front end. At the back end, the purpose of NYSC was to take the children of Port Harcourt, the children of Warri, the children of Lagos, to go and perish in Namoda, in Biu, in Potiskum.
If that were
While the children of Sokoto and Kano and Meduguri are sent to Port Harcourt to be retained in NNPC, to be retained in NPA. But that's how we came about that, and they put it inside the Constitution in such a manner that you can't change it.
What about the fact that in 1995,
yes,
there was another committee headed by Justice Nikki Toby?
Yes.
So they went through the same process, asked questions of the same people,
yeah,
and then he said Nigerians said they prefer to settle for the 1979 Constitution. So
the meeting is holding the meeting like all the pretenses. Obasanjo has had a conference. The other people, Jonathan called his own conference. The pretense is that the government is now the one to hand down constitution to the people. The meeting that will produce a constitution is between the Yoruba as people who can become country of their own, like we are hearing them say now. The eastern part, that could be Biafra or anything they call themselves as country of their own, those are the people quarreling. Those are the people you have to settle the terms of their relationship. That is what the Constitution does. The terms of coming together. Bola Ige even broke it down for us. He said that in all the demand for sovereign conference, it is to answer 2 questions. Are we prepared to continue as one union? If the answer is yes, and that's by referendum, should we then list the terms of that being in that union? That's the article, like the memo and the article. When you have a memo that is toppled, the memo is the company, creates the company. The article now lists all of how the owners of the company will relate. There are 2 different documents.
All right. We'll come back to this in just a moment and get your concluding thoughts. Please stay with us. Welcome back. It's our concluding moments now. Go ahead, Kaide.
Well, as much as there's a lot of value in looking at where we're coming from, how we got here, it's also important to, look at where we are, the realities on ground right now. Yes, the National Assembly has, put in motion that constitution review process, 13 thematic areas. That seems to be, the way forward right now. Now, you gave that analogy about the building, the foundation, the vertical column, and of course the roof. Some ask, where is the plan, the blueprint in all of this? So the challenge we have right now, is it a constitution thing? Can we ever get a perfect constitution? Or is it in the relationship between the foundation and the walls, I think the people and the managers, as it were? Where is our solution in all of this?
Right. The matter is simple and straightforward. We have abandoned the foundation upon which we could have built, and we have been building on the wrong foundation. When you find yourself in that kind of a situation, you get back to, working the foundation and then building on it. Anything less than that, whatever you are doing, and which is what the Vice President is raising alarm about, is going to collapse on you. And in order to avoid that, like I said at the beginning, what the processes I've been involved in that came from a meeting of all, the PRONACO that we called in 2005, involving all the nationalities in the country, coming to decide how and whether and how they will carry on in that union, that came out with a product in which even our present president, Muhammad Buhari, was part of the Fulani delegation that came to that conference. We had all of those who were carrying arms against Nigeria at the time. We pleaded with them to put aside their guns. Asari, and his Niger Delta Volunteer Force, Gani Adams, and his OPC, those who were flying Biafran flags all over the place. The whole place was breaking down. And we said, look, let's not continue to wait indefinitely for the managers of this, our enterprise. Let the owners of the enterprise go into a discussion. And we came out with a draft that should have been able to take us back to, where we begin to build, but the government refused to come along. Today, looking at where we are, I can tell us authoritatively that unless we accept that our social contract is damaged, the Constitution is the social contract. What the LNC and the MNN alliance partners, the three blocks to the east, to the west, and to the middle belt, are coming together to present to the country at this time by way of what we call constitutional force majeure, to declare an emergency around this situation that's about to consume us, because blood is flowing all over the place. And if we pretend we do not realize that that danger can consume both we and the union, then we are just waiting to be consumed. And so it is to present Nigeria and all of those entrapped in it as at now, and a framework and an orderly process to ease itself out of the bind it finds itself under this unitarism, like South Africa did with apartheid constitution. It wasn't the parliament that went discussing. Those who sit in Abuja and tell us now that they are going to amend, they are committing treason against the rest of us, because our sovereignty has not been submitted to them on account of voting at the elections. Our sovereignty remains with us. But the National Assembly makes law according to Constitution. That's
the arrangement we have, pardon me, the
Yes.
arrangement we have is representation, basically
Yes.
saying that one person represents a group of people.
Yes.
So the voice of that group is heard from that one person. So in terms of the National Assembly instituting that process,
Yes.
isn't it the voice of the people that should prevail through the representatives?
No, their mandate, that's what I'm trying to explain. The mandate of the National Assembly, we did not submit our sovereignty to them to take away and do as they like. We only mandated them for the 4 years to go and be in the management team of that company, to make laws according to the constitution we already made,
Exactly.
according to the memo and article. They've departed from the memo and article. Everybody who comes forward to swear to defend and uphold this constitution of 99 is telling the rest of us that he will prefer us to remain the slaves we are. He will prefer us to be killed the way we are being killed in the Middle Belt and elsewhere.
Sorry, let me get this clear. Are
Yes.
you implying that the representatives are not representing the people? That's one thing. Are you saying that there's a restriction in terms of the constitution they're operating in?
No, their mandate, like the analogy I gave about the company, the owners, and their memo and articles, is not the hired management of a company that will go to write memo and article. That is what has been going on since 1967. The management we hired have become the owners of our enterprise. And we're saying that we have to move on to how the owners of the enterprise will sit down and work out whether they want to continue, and that's by referendum.
Speaking about the how.
Yes.
So, okay, that point which you just made.
Yes.
So what if that clause is provided for in our laws? Will that address the challenges?
Let me tell you what will have to change. The preamble to the Constitution that claims that we, the people, have solemnly resolved to live together as one indivisible union, that is the biggest complaint that has to be resolved, and is not in the place of National Assembly to resolve it. It's the constituents, the Yoruba that now say they want to leave the union. the Biafran people that say they want to leave the union, and the middle belt that say they don't want to have anything to do with their next neighbors. Those are the ones who should be discussing whether they want to recommit, and it is by referendums.
Again, I go to that. You've talked about the referendum.
Yes.
Ultimately, there
Yes.
still has to be representation at some point, right?
Yes.
So
it must be a body with constituent powers, not the National Assembly.
Okay,
is
now,
usurping our sovereignty by pretending they're the ones who now have to decide for us. Okay. The mandate to decide constitution is not part of the legislative mandate when you vote an election to go and be represented. There's the constitution, there's the law. The constitution is the mold from which laws are made.
We have had such conversations in the past.
Yes.
We have had sovereign national conferences, we had constitutional conferences, and we are still where we are.
Because the system have been lying to itself. Which sovereign conference have we had after Aburi? After Aburi, we've not had any sovereign conference. It was in Aburi that there was a sovereign. The last sovereign conference was in Aburi. The only other attempt was in Pronaco, where everybody came, but the government refused to come along. Obasanjo actually went on air to say that we were committing treason if we called a meeting of the owners of the enterprise.
One moment, which goes back to the question I asked the other time about whether it's a problem of the constitution, which you have responded to, or the system of government we are running, because we still have to operate through a system of government.
It is the constitution.
People themselves.
No. It is the constitution. One controls the other. If you put a foundation for a bungalow, and you begin to erect something that will carry 40-story structure pillars and begin to take it up, it will crash on you. We're saying that the problem we have to solve is to go to that foundation in which the Yoruba and the eastern part and the middle belt they are agreeing to submit their lands and their people. That preamble that says we the people have solemnly resolved is saying that the Ijaw has resolved to submit their lands and their assets into the union. It's saying that the Yoruba had resolved to submit their lands and their assets. It's a lie. We can't build on that lie any further.
Let me see if we can just go through the thematic areas that the National Assembly put forward. Areas for constitution review. Talks about gender equality for women and girls, federal structure, and power devolution, which I think you have also talked about. I don't know if that handles that area for you. There's also local government and its autonomy. If you go all the way down, you see residency and indigent provisions, the National Assembly, even state creation is captured in those thematic areas, 13 of them. I didn't list all of them, but from the ones I listed, federal structure, power devolution, local government, its autonomy, state creation, residency, indigent provisions, don't you think they at least handle some of the issues you have raised about the owners and the managers? The mere fact that they are sitting, telling us that the ones that have to now decide for us, at the time we're saying we have to decide for ourselves whether we want to be in this union, they are committing treason against the rest of us, and the owners of the enterprise are working out how they will seize the initiative by themselves to provide some kind of framework and process that will be orderly. The constitutional force majeure is to say that our social contract has gone bad. The basis of being in one union have been truncated, and the owners of the enterprise now wish to bring an end to this imposition that is tormenting them, that has seized their assets, that is now exposed them to where they are being eliminated for extermination. As a people on their spaces. And so it is the right to self-determination that have been truncated by the jettisoning of the constitution that was built on that right. The meetings of Lancaster House before independence, was in respect to the self-determination rights of the units that will federate. Our federation has collapsed. If we continue to pretend the country will collapse on us.
All right, Mr. Tony Nadi, we do thank you very much for your thoughts this morning. So I guess the many questions concerning the Constitution continues. We will be back in a moment. Don't go away.
in Nigeria, Nehemiah should be taken as a metaphor for that Nigerian who resides either in the country or outside, would cry to God to give him the wherewithal to use the abundant opportunities in the country to address our challenges of nation building. Fortunately for us in Nigeria, our walls are not yet broken, but have cracks that could lead to break if not properly addressed.
Well, that is the comments that generated and still is a lot of comments from different quarters. Well, we've got two gentlemen joining us this morning to give their perspective on what's going on and the way forward. Alhaji Muhammad Yakubu is a member, National Working Committee of the ACF. He's also a political analyst, as you can see, joining us from our studios in Abuja. We also do have Dr. Olufemi Adegoke, who is the Chairman, Steering Committee of Yoruba Summit Group and Chairman, Voice of Reason. Good morning, sir. And gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. Well, having listened to and read perhaps the comments attributed to the Vice President and reactions, what context that people are responding to it from, the questions about the Constitution appears unending, year on year, one agitation or the other, more so when we approach days such as this one, the eve or the day of our anniversary, which is again playing itself out again this time. So let me start with you, Alhaji Yakubu. What do you think? How can we answer this big question that seems unending? Getting us together and strengthening the union together.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Good morning, Nigerians. I must say I'm really worried about the statement credited to Mr. Vice President because of two reasons. Number one, that statement gives a picture of helplessness and, near hopelessness even. In the first instance, this government is elected to unite the country and to bring us out of the woods. They came into power because we felt these were some of the indices that were manifesting itself in the previous government. That's why Nigerians felt that the present government has the capacity and has the will to, change the tide, unite the country, make more progress. But for this kind of statement coming from the Vice President, a sitting Vice President, I think it's unfortunate. It's not expected of that office. And government, those in power are supposed to give us hope.
Well, ironically, in that same statement, if I can just
now telling us that if they are now telling us that the situation is helpless and near hopelessness, so it's a source of worry.
All right. If I can quickly follow up on your response, saying that sounded helpless and hopeless. Interestingly, the context which the Vice President made that statement was, fortunately for us, our walls are not yet broken, but there are obvious cracks that could lead to a break if not properly addressed. So do you still think that was hopeless? I mean, he said, fortunately, and he went on to say that, in fact, there's an urgent need for a Nehemiah in our midst, because he was using the metaphor of Nehemiah in the Bible and the broken wall, which eventually, a solution was provided. So in the context of that, not just speaking out the break and the crack, do you still think that was hopeless?
Yeah, that's why they are in the office. That's why they are elected. They are supposed to ensure that if there are cracked walls, they are supposed to mend it. And let me tell you, my other worries and is the fact that a section of the country is orchestrating certain hatred against the other section of the country. This will not help us. When we want a solution to the problems of this country, we should not lace it with mischief and hatred. Now the damage has been done. Whatever that means, it's going to be difficult to convince some gullible Nigerians that the vice president means well, considering the fact that before now, there are previous statements, in this direction too, from the Southwest, that, the Oduduwas and so on. I have a lot of respected statesmen, a lot of elder statesmen from the Southwest that I respect a lot. But some of the statements coming from some groups in the Southwest laced with hatred and mischief is not going to help us in this country.
Now, let me even get to...
is that even if we want a new constitution, or if we want to separate, there's a better way, a matured way, a dynamic way of doing it. If we are not careful, this is going to create more violence and more orchestrated hatred and mischief amongst the Nigerians.
Okay, let me head to the Southwest.
Seriously, I'm not happy with that statement coming from the vice president.
All right, let me bring in Dr. Adegoke. Pardon me, Mr. Mohammed. Let me get to Dr. Adegoke on this one. Could you weigh in on this one as well? How do we sort this challenge out? Adegoke, that's for you.
Oh, I can't hear anything.
Can you hear us now?
Okay, the sound comes a bit late,
Okay, but don't wait for the sound from the TV. Just go ahead and respond to us.
Okay, what's the question, please?
Now, the agitation coming from everywhere. He's saying that the way the Southwest is going about it with some of those agitation, Mr. Alhaji Yakubu is not happy with it.
Well, of course, he can't be happy. Well, first of all, let me thank you for bringing me in. I represent an umbrella of Yoruba groups, and primarily I represent Voice of Reason. And Voice of Reason is made up of elderly people, very measured, and people who are very reasonable. We have said that we need to restructure this country before the country can move forward. The person who was there earlier on, my friend Tony, gave a very good background of what's been happening. The gentleman in the studio is not likely to be happy because they are enjoying what they should not be enjoying now. It's like somebody who has stolen your goods and you've caught him and you're asking him to return what he has stolen. And he's telling you that he's not happy with what you're saying. Of course, he won't be happy. Either he gives it up peacefully, or, there will be some problem, either going to court or you fight over it. That is the basic truth.
He said that is part of the methodology of the narrative that could stoke what we do not want. Because the narrative and analogy you use, isn't that a lot different from the situation we have now? Because as it is now, we've got laws, we have systems, we have structures that many think can address some of these concerns that you have raised. Isn't that the case?
Believe me, people are very reasonable. They said, let us sit down and discuss. There was something that was working before the army took over. Even in the Constitution, it is illegal for the government to be taken by force of arms. And after the Civil War, people should have come together to say, okay, what these people did was illegal. Either they are punished for it, which graciously they were not, but then we should have gone back to where we were and said, oh, okay, this was the situation before these people disrupted the system. But like Tony said, we've been living a lie since then, patching everything and refusing to do the fundamentals. So, of course, that is the situation where we are.
Let me bring in Elijah Yakubu again on this one. Well, if certain things are not going right, perhaps you don't like how they're going about it, what do you suggest and how should this be approached?
Chamberlain, let me let you in on this. I'm not going to use the kind of language my brother from the Southwest is using. You know, this kind of offensive language are the kind of language that precipitate hatred and mischief. We won't get anywhere if we continue using this kind of language against each other. Don't forget, I listened to Tony too. Don't forget that pre-independence, the North was taking care of the country altogether from its farm produce. There is history to that effect. That's number one. Number two, let me give you an example of the security situation in the country now. The North is worst hit by the insecurity in this country now. If you are talking of blood flow in the Middle Belt and elsewhere in the Southwest and so on, you are not talking of the North. The state of the president, even where the president comes from in Katsina, every day on average, the least is 5 people are being killed, if not kidnapped, and so on. Go to Zamfara, go to Kaduna, go to Sokoto. I think in analyzing, in finding solutions to this problem, I think we should be fair to each part of this country. Part of the problem that is retarding our progress is injustice and unfairness. We are not being fair and we are not being just to each other. You know, when we go back to our cocoons, our ethnic enclaves and begin to protect it, either the enclave is right or wrong, it won't help us make progress. How can you look at us in the North and be using this kind of depiction that when a certain group of people stole your property and you want them, you don't use this kind of language. And you said your group is a reasonable group, matured group. How can you use that kind of language? I have a lot of respected elder statesmen across this country, from the Southwest, Southeast, and so on. I respect them a lot, and I speak with them all the time. Agreed, all is not well with the country now, but that should not. People should not take undue advantage of that. Agreed, the president needs to do more himself. I listened to the president recently during his retreat with his ministers, where he mentioned to the ministers that he wants the ministers to talk to their elite friends on what the government is doing. I think on this issue, the president has to come out very strong and find a way of getting leaders of various groups across this country and speak with them. Even if it means him calling the elites and having a heart-to-heart talk or a round-table talk with them. But please, we should stop using derogatory languages offensive languages against each other. Because
all right,
it will find solution to these problems.
We need to go to break, but we will come back and continue our conversation. So do we have a communication challenge? We'll address that when we return. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's get to Dr. Adegoke. You were going to respond before we went to break. Could you go ahead, please?
Right. Thank you very much. There are so many things he said that, I need to respond to. In the first instance, he erroneously said that the North was carrying the whole country before. He should be reminded that the arrangement then was that there was autonomy. Every region maintained their economy and they just paid a fraction of whatever they derived from within their region to the federal government. The North was making its money from groundnut and from all the other things, their hides and whatever, whereas the West was making its money from cocoa and palm oil, and the same thing with the Eastern region. Now, the question of using a language that is not palatable, I only use that as a metaphor. Now, the federal government appropriated everything, things that did not belong to federal government. Is that not stealing? Then secondly, they start to divide it the way they want, and the people who have been in control of the federal government since the Civil War, we know where they've come from. A situation where the parliament now, which is the National Assembly, has a preponderance of northerners there, to the extent that the people representing Kano State alone, there are more than the people representing the whole of the Eastern region, the old Eastern region. And every time people have been talking of, let us restructure, they are ever ready to say, go to the National Assembly, when they know that the dice is loaded against everybody else. And we are saying that this is not fair.
Yeah, but Dr. Adegoke,
have...
pardon me to jump in and follow up on that response of yours. Actually, what some of the leaders of thought who were spoken to behind the scenes in the North are that because when the South or some Southerners talk about restructuring, it means different things to different people. But even at that, they still think that, look, all of this agitation, we can't sit in one corner, talk about restructuring, whatever meaning it has for them, and expect that those in other regions will understand what they're saying without them going over to lobby them. Because many have said, even in the National Assembly, if proper lobbying is not done, you can't get things passed. So would it be right to just have that blanket blame on a certain bloc when that bloc thinks certain things have not been done by the agitators?
This is the same thing we are saying. It's the same thing we are saying. It's very easy to say, this and that, and try to wash their hands that is what the law says now. But the law on which the whole country is based is flawed. And we are saying, let us sit down together and correct it. But they've made it almost impossible. This idea of people not knowing what restructuring is just a subterfuge. Everybody knows what it means. Let us go to the status quo ante bellum. That when there was war, we knew that there was war, but the war had ended. Let us go back to where we were when things started going wrong. Then we can chart our way back from there. But because it pays people now the way things are, it pays some people, not only in the North, even in the South, there are some people who are benefiting from this chaos, and they don't want it to change. They continue saying that they don't know what is restructuring. They will talk of devolution tomorrow. They will talk of resource control. Just to muddy the water. They know what should be done.
If I can come in now,
people should come together and decide on how they want to live together and prepare the constitution that will guide them. That
just quickly before we take it back to our Abuja studio, the claim you made about the National Assembly members in Kano being more than those of the Southeast, do you have figures to back that?
Please come again.
I said the claim you made about National Assembly members from Kano being more than those of Southeast states put together. Do you have figures to back that?
Now, look, when this country was just 12 states, look at the number of states that have been created since then. Look at the number that have been created from Kano alone. You had Digawa and the rest. Look at the local government in Lagos State. We had the same number before with Kano. But even when Kano was split, Kano still have, more than Lagos State as it is. And these are the types of parameters they use in sharing money and so on, which is very unfair. And with the number of legislators in the National Assembly, it is impossible for, it's just like the North has a veto over whatever happens in this country, which is
Let's
not
take this
fair.
back. Yes, Dr. Doke, just one moment. Let's take it back to Alhaji Yakubu in Abuja studio. Well, of course, you would also respond to it. But gentlemen, I feel that, from what we have had so far, we seem to be paying a lot more attention to our different regions and sentiments as opposed to Nigeria. Okay, is there any way we can begin to look at that? Just as I think it's something that you also alluded to earlier, Mr. Yakubu. How do we begin that conversation of talking about Nigeria as one, and not Nigeria in the light of the North and the South and the East and the West and all of that? How do we begin that conversation?
Thank you very much. Some of us, in our own little way, apart from the organization I represent, in our own little way, have been making contacts with our friends across the country. I speak almost on daily basis with elder statesmen across the country on how I think, we can move forward. That's number one. Number two, there is no way, even if we want a brand new constitution, we can't throw away the National Assembly. You have to build something on what you have. How if I can ask my brother from the Southwest, how does he want us to have a brand new constitution without talking together, without having cross-fertilization of ideas amongst ourselves? Most of the things he's talking about now, about the North, this and that, is on assumption. What effort have his group made to reach out to other groups, other groups in other parts of the country? I can tell you what ACF is doing, and some of us as individuals doing to reach out to other parts of the country. That's how you get the country united. That's how we can get problems solved together. There's no doubt that the country is at its lowest ebb now on all fronts. This I totally agree. But what needs to be done now is to walk the talk. Not assumptions, not castigation, not,
You just agreed with something.
Blaming a particular tribe or region.
Just one moment. You just agreed now, you said it just before we went on break, that there are some issues that need to be addressed among us as a nation. That perhaps is what was also alluded to in that comment, that is attributed to the vice president, that is what the kind of crack that he is talking about. So if we are going to begin to address those cracks, which you also say are the challenges that we are having, how do we begin that conversation without looking at the sentiments? Because perhaps those sentiments that you just talked about now are some of those cracks. How do we begin to address them?
That's why in my opening remarks I told you that is why the current government was voted into power. Because Nigerians feel they have the capacity and the will to sort us out. And I also told you now that in the retreat organized by the president with his ministers, I heard him saying that the ministers should go and talk to their elite friends, that this is what the government is doing. That's why I also said that I think the president himself had to lead frontally. If the government believes that there are issues now, from the statement made by the vice president, then they should start to walk the talk. They should lead. Then we'll follow. The president should call leaders of ethnic groups and call the elites. He's part of the elite now. Okay. Even before he became president, he's an elite. Okay. He knows them better than some of us.
Yes, let me take this back to...
and heart-to-heart talk.
Absolutely. Dr. Adegoke, what's your take on how we move from our different regional sentiments to one Nigeria, the theme of this year's celebration as dictated by the leadership of the country is together? But if we continue to talk about the pockets of our interests in the various regions, then we all are defeating the purpose of that vision. So what do we need to begin, what do we need to do to begin to bound or bind us together as one so that we can indeed be together as we are.
Now, there has to be, the atmosphere has to be right. Even the president himself laid the foundation for all these problems. When he was, my friend there said that he was voted into power. That is okay. The moment you are voted into power by even any section of the country as the president, you become the president of the whole country. He is on record to have said that he cannot treat the people who gave him 5% with the same people, the same way that he's going to treat people with 95 who voted him 95%. And you expect people to be happy with that sort of mindset. And he has followed it through with the way he has appointed people into the government. And even only a day or two ago, we were reading the papers that the DSS recruited about 500 and something people from the north, and only about 80 something people from the south. How do you want to belong to such a country? There has to be justice before people can have a sense of belonging. People cannot have a sense of belonging when they have complaints all over the place. Look at the security situation in the country. It's really very bad. I was looking at a video recently, the whole governor of a state crouching don't let me use the word in my mouth, on the asphalt, because his convoy, which had a lot of policemen there, was attacked, and many of them were killed. And we have a government who is telling us that they have dealt with Boko Haram. How do you want to belong to a situation like that? That's not who we are.
Okay.
But the whole country has been mismanaged. Everybody knows that. And they are talking of the problem in the north. When people were talking about education, please let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
There was a time when people had money for education. The north did not spend this money properly, and that's why they have a lot of people who are ready to join Boko Haram. In spite of that, they've been bridging the gap between the south and the north for so long. They have discrepancies in the admission numbers of students. Still, so many years down the line, nothing has changed. There is no improvement, and you can't put that blame on us. If you cannot take care of your house, let us take care of our own house and keep us in peace. That is what we are saying.
But Dr. Adegoke, there are some sweeping statements that you made which are not exactly the case, because we've spoken to some people up north who the reasons that they are Jews, because some of their world joining it, they are completely different reasons. So we can't exactly say that the north did not spend their money properly and that's why this is happening. But clearly that is not. That cannot be factual as well, because of the people who were brought on this program who have given us their perspectives.
On education, most of those children will be in school, not on the bush and on the road.
But it's a national problem. It's a national problem, which is why we're talking about what solutions. How do we approach some of these things to sort them out?
You cannot expect somebody from the south to go and solve the problem of the north. They have people there, they have politicians there.
But it is one country.
This type of thing.
It is one country. Isn't it this kind of narrative that even...
Country, that is the aggregate of everybody. That is why it is one country. But for goodness sake, it is one country. Look at the devastation going on in the south, where the oil is being siphoned off.
So, I might have missed the point earlier. What is your suggestion as to how do you come about a new constitution with the National Assembly in place?
Now, you see, the low-hanging fruit there is this 2014 confab report, which every section of this country participated in, and they came up with something which the government should have implemented. Government is a continuum. When a government is not supposed to be there forever. When a government gets something to a stage, another government coming in will take it up from there. But a lot of money was spent on this confab, and somebody just came and threw it inside the drawer and locked it up. That is the basis that is the place where we should start. That is the easiest way to go now.
Okay,
Otherwise,
Dr. Duke, just for a moment. Let's go to Abuja to our guest again, Alhaji Yakubu. A lot of times when we talk about Nigeria, we do not talk about Nigerians. We do not talk about the different subnationals, the states, the state governments, the local governments, and the wards and all of that. And perhaps that is also part of the reason why people are not able to take ownership of the oneness of Nigeria, because we always talk about Nigeria with little attention to those subnationals. And that is perhaps another reason why a number of people are complaining about that exclusive list, which has 68 items as opposed to the other one that has less than 20. In conversation with the states to keep Nigeria together, strengthening our democracy, strengthening our nationhood, what do we need to do, especially from the level of the states?
Let me quickly give you one example of the disadvantage of regionalizing most of our issues or most problems in Nigeria. If you remember during the June 12th, the North has always stood for justice and fairness across this country. No matter what some people might perceive or perception of some people. If you remember June 12th, because of June 12th, Colonel Engiwa Umar sacrificed his commission as a military officer. People like Balarabu Musa spoke up then. People like Shehu Usani spoke up then, Senator Shehu Usani, and there were other younger people down the ladder like us that stood up for that cause then. But that cause started having some problem when the Southwest started regionalizing the issues. So what I'm trying to say here in a nutshell is that, look, if we want to solve Nigerian problem, we have to look for Nigerian solution to Nigerian problems. We can't throw away our National Assembly, whatever it is. We have to come together and talk to them, bring our issues out. Like I earlier said, my brother from the Southwest, has he been able to reach out to other parts of the country? We should not lace this crisis or some of these challenges with hatred and mischief. If we are very objective, we can get these problems solved. And this present administration needs to sit up. I'm not saying that they are doing fantastically well. They need to sit up, walk the talk, and lead from the front. If they lead from the front, a lot of this crisis will die down.
Okay, but when he was talking about the representation in the National Assembly, I think the point he was trying to make is that he thinks that, look, there's a lot more representation for the Northern Bloc than the Southern Bloc. So how do you address those kinds of impressions? Because some will build on that, saying that might have been part of the reasons why the amendments to the Constitution, which was requiring state police and some of other matters, fell through because of such considerations.
If we don't make effort, how can we address it? If you don't go to the National Assembly through your representative that these are the issues we want to address, how do you address it? We can't just be on the air, on the radio, on the newspaper, and just be talking. We have spoken more than enough in this country. We have lamented more than enough in this country. We need to walk the talk now. Let him come through his representative to the National Assembly. Let's trash out these issues. We can't build a new constitution on nothing.
Let me read this.
Amended, if we want a new constitution, we have to go through our representatives.
Okay, concerning the statements
how do we do it? We can't get it from the blues.
Pardon me. Concerning the statements that many have been responding to, attributed to the Vice President, let me read this memo, this press statement, which is coming through from the office of the SGF. So if we can just put it up for all to see. So that memo reads, guys, let's see if we can take a look at that now. The SGF's office put up this saying, I have observed with concern the apparent sensationalization of the remarks I made at the 60th Independence Anniversary Church Service where I stood in for His Excellency, the Vice President. For the avoidance of doubt, I want to affirm that His Excellency, the Vice President, and I remain very firmly and irrevocably committed to the ideal of one indivisible Nigerian nation. We are also deeply appreciative of President Muhammadu Buhari's consistent efforts to strengthen the unity of the Nigerian nation. Any suggestion to the contrary is a clear misrepresentation of our common position as a government. Signed, Secretary Boss Mustafa, Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Doesn't this then suggest that we might have been building impressions on a faulty premise?
But knowing Nigeria, knowing Nigeria for what some of us are, the statement credited to the Vice President was made on Sunday, and today is Wednesday. Immediately after the statement, having noticed the kind of opera that followed it, this refutal should have come immediately. The damage has already been done now. A lot of people will think is an afterthought. I'm just seeing it now. I've not seen it before. I'm just seeing it now. And today is Wednesday.
Right.
And the statement was made on Sunday. Yeah?
Clearly, the statement, the original statement, was meant to be a metaphor, an example that was given. And really, I read the context for you, the fact that there was fortunately in that saying that this is not hopeless. We can sort this out the same way it was sorted in the story that he put before that particular statement. But quickly, gentlemen, I want to take you up on something, because I realized that during the course of this interview, both of you have said, my brother in the Southwest, my brother from the North. And I'm just thinking, first with you, Alhaji, as a brother, if the Southwest were really your brother, how would you really go about this? Isn't there meant to be some brotherliness in the way we approach this?
Of course, that's the solution to our challenges. If we are sincere in that brotherhood, we'll get out of the woods. It's sincerity of purpose that matters. I'll give you one quick example. Late Arishekola, I was passing through Ibadan when he was alive. I just visited him just to say hello. Could you believe he insisted I had to stay for 2 days? That is called brotherhood. I have a lot of friends across the country, in the Southwest, Southeast, and virtually everywhere. So if we are sincere in this brotherhood, objectively, no insincerity and no hatred, no mischief, there's no problem that we cannot surmount in this country.
Okay, let's take this to Dr. Adegoke now and get his thoughts.
Republic,
Let's take this to Dr. Adegoke and get him to respond also in that context of brotherliness, because I think that's something we can build on. So, Dr. Adegoke, in the light of the terms both of you have used, brotherliness, how do we approach this?
There's nothing wrong with brotherliness. There's nothing wrong with brotherliness. But then we cannot have a situation of a donkey and a rider, and we call that brotherliness. There are a lot of Westerners who have friends across the Niger. And even a lot of Igbos. I mean, there are people who have individual friends, personal friends across the whole divide. But that is not the question we are talking now. We are saying that the structure is not good, it's not fair, there is injustice. Let us correct it. And the only way we can do it is to come together. I agree that we have to come together, but trying to put it on the National Assembly to solve the problem, we are just deceiving ourselves. We are not going to go anywhere. Let them go and revisit the 2014 confab. There are some low-hanging fruits there that can be implemented that will douse the tension in the country. But if you just want to reinvent the wheel and try to waste people's time until the next election, the tension will continue the way it is going, and it's not going to all go well. We have to be reasonable.
Yes.
Let us come back from the brink and do what is right. That is what I believe.
All right, Mr. Yakubu, do you also agree that we should take a look at the 2014 confab report?
I agree to that, but what if he is writing off the National Assembly and he said there are hanging fruits? Where do you take them to reap those hanging fruits? Huh? You don't write off the National Assembly and you say there are hanging fruits. Who will deal with those hanging fruits? It's the National Assembly. So what I think we should do is all the various groups should put pressure on their representatives that let's sit down and this is what we feel should be done. Like I asked him in the course of this conversation, that how has he been able to reach out to other groups across the country? This is the only way we can get, we can find a solution to the problems. They are surmountable problems. They are not challenges that are insurmountable. It's just the will and the sincerity of purpose and leadership from the government. If we don't get the leadership government, then we do it ourselves. I agree with that.
All right, Alhaji Muhammad Yakubu.
You know, I complained of something, and he used that same derogatory word again, the donkey and the rider. No, you don't use this kind of word against a set of people.
Okay, even though he was.
If you look at my conversation since we started, I've been very cultured in my language.
And we appreciate that. But we have to thank you both for coming on this morning. Alhaji Muhammad Yakubu, member, National Working Committee of the ACF and a political analyst, as well as Dr. Olufemi Adegoke, Chairman, Steering Committee of Yoruba Summit Group, and also Chairman, Voice of Reason. Thank you, sir, gentlemen, for talking to us this morning. So we need to Georgia and not war above all else. Nigeria at 60, the theme together. So we'll, don't forget, we did put out a poll. We'd like you to go ahead and vote in that poll. It's on our Twitter handle. We did ask you just one question, and so there are a number of options there. So if you could just go ahead. But we'll be back in just a moment. Join us again. Look at some of your feedback. We've got this one from Uto, who says, I think the VP knows what's going on within and without, hence the statement to portray the state which Jeremiah went through for the Israelites, which is worse today. Truth must be told, hence the need to truly unite the country in peace and love. But the context, don't forget, we've since read the letter. Did he actually say those words?
And it was Nehemiah, I believe.
Not Jeremiah.
You know, but the next one, Felix says there is no perfect constitution in the world, and no constitution is cast in stone. That's why the constitution contains an amendment provision so that over time, all visible inadequacies could be addressed by the legislature.
Victor says, like one elder in my church once said in a meeting, who will bear the cat? We're not ready, really. We talk, we don't do nothing.
How about Badon Joshua, who says, well, I hope this is it. If Nigeria had remained together since 1960, despite all that happened, a simple logic will tell anyone that what we need to make a better Nigeria is not the constitution, rather working on our mindset by treating every Nigerian with fairness at all levels.
Oh, Mohammed says the electricity tariff has not been reversed. Ooh. A friend bought yesterday, 29th September 2020. Still same tariff, he says.
Oh dear.
And your friend Dad Matilda also has a message.
Okay, well thank you, Dad Matilda. But hey guys, what about the poll? We did ask people, don't forget, the poll is still there on our Twitter handle, so just go ahead if you can and vote. That is the show today. It will be a big one tomorrow. We will join you then as well. Thank you for watching. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
We'll be together tomorrow, right? I'm Kayode Kikile.
In brotherhood we stand.
Yeah. Yes, and sit sometimes. I'm Ayo Makide. Have a wonderful day.
Oh, goodness.